Welcome back to Unlimited Reads. You're with Chris, and thanks for joining me for another book review. This time I will be reviewing Famous by Blake Crouch. This is one of his works that was originally released in 2011. It's only just this month, in fact, that it got re-released here in Australia in the larger C-format paperback. Now, I didn't pay enough attention to Blake Crouch's backlist, and I thought this was a brand new release, which I mentioned in my book haul video recently, so I was mistaken, but it's one that I haven't read. I have read the Wayward Pines trilogy, I've read Run, I've read Upgrade, Recursion and Dark Matter, and Blake Crouch is an automatic buy for me. So as soon as this one came to my attention, I snapped it up damn quick. So let's start, how I always like to, with what the book is about, and I'll read it straight from the back cover copy. Meet Lance, 38-year-old, works a meaningless job, still lives above his parents' garage. By all accounts, a world-class loser. Except for one glaring exception, he has a $1 million face. Lance has been mistaken 87 times for the Oscar-winning movie star James Janson, and for the past 10 years he's saved his money and studied Janson's films, his moves, his idiosyncrasies, even the way he speaks. Now, after an unceremonious termination from his job, Lance has decided that the time has come to go after his dream, no matter the cost. Okay, so we have Lance, who works in a mediocre legal job which produces patent applications, so it's pretty boring. There's no client face-to-face meetings or anything like that, so it affords him the luxury of getting around the office in jeans and t-shirt, but he's not really respected by his peers or his bosses. And when he does get canned, he decides that, he's saved up a fair bit of money. Why doesn't he pursue his dream at being famous for a little while and assuming James Janson's life? So he sets out for New York and makes a bit of an impact there, and it just proves how he can fool people into believing that he is actually James Janson. So then what he does, in a bolder move, he ends up going over to LA to assume James Janson's life. Now, what makes this incredibly risky is, obviously, you can research someone's life, James Janson's life, in meticulous detail, but you still, there are things that you can't do that James Janson does. For example, being able to act is one thing which Lance cannot do, and that's where he can fall into a trap. And his plans can come apart very easily, especially if he were to run into James Janson himself face to face. That would be very, very interesting. So beyond that, there would be spoilers there, so I won't mention any here. I think, being an earlier work of Blake Crouch's, I don't think it's his best work. Recursion, Dark Matter, really, really great books. And this one, how do I say it? The writing's good, the pacing's great, but there's no real conflict until the very end, because what we're doing is following Lance around, and he's dipping his toes into James Janson's life, and he's meeting people and rubbing shoulders with the bigwigs in Hollywood and things like that, which is okay, but there was nothing really exciting about it. It was compelling enough to read about, but I just felt there wasn't much of a conflict that Lance had to come across until the very end, which even the ending was okay on what he did. But the one thing I will pick the book for, which mildly irritated me, at the start of each chapter, okay, I'll just give you a look here. Let's look at chapter 9, and the chapter subheadings say this: the night he won the Oscar, back in the green room, scares them with the threat of vomiting, makes an exit, going home, a hypothetical conversation between you and Lance. Indulge him. So you can see here at the start, it's got that little bit of text there. Now, I like foreshadowing. Okay, I like it included in the story. I don't need my handheld to be told in very, very brief terms on what's coming up. And I think that's not a very good decision on Blake Crouch's part, because you don't need your handheld. And it read to me like every time I started a new chapter, I thought to myself, are these his outline notes that he's left in the book? I don't think a reader needs that. And that was a bit of a gripe with me, because in the end, over the halfway mark, I ended up just skipping over them, because it was just annoying, because I don't need to know what's coming up. it's the author's job to surprise me, and if they're, these read like very, very mild spoilers, in my opinion, so it's like racing ahead to see what happens, and a little bit of a cheat, if I can say that. So I love Blake Crouch's work, but I just don't think this one was as good as Recursion, Dark Matter, and the Wayward Pines trilogy, etc., etc. It was entertaining enough to see what lengths Lance went through to impersonate James Jansen. It was interesting, don't get me wrong, but those chapter subheadings with the what's coming up annoyed me, and they just do not need to be in a book. A reader is mature enough to wait for what's coming up. We just don't need to be told and have our hand held there. So that is a small gripe I've got. I'm very happy that I read it. I do plan on reading a bit more of Blake Crouch's backlist, and I was pleased that this one got re-released in large format paperback, because it is a good format to read in. But that's pretty much all I've got to say. It's a good book. I recommend reading it if you haven't, because it's a really good sample of the strength of Blake Crouch's writing, but just a couple of things I nitpicked, and I gave it a 3-star rating out of 5. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing. But until the next video, guys, happy reading.